New episodes of the I Know You Didn't Ask podcast are out every Monday and Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Welcome to I Know You Didn't Ask. I'm your host, Megan O'Donnell, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys today. Today is all about what is going on with Netflix, because Netflix is pumping out content at such a speed that I simply cannot keep up. Wednesday's episode will be all about Bravo TV news because you guys know I am itching to talk about Kyle and Amanda's breakup. We all saw the writing on the walls, but now it is confirmed. So I have an amazing guest, a fellow Megan and a fellow podcaster, who will be on Wednesday's episode where we talk all about what's going on in the Bravo world. I was also going to obviously touch on the Beckham family drama that we have been, I feel like, too exposed to. I feel like everybody just needs to keep their drama offline. But again, they're giving us this information, they're giving us the piping hot tea. So us cultural critics out there just have to talk about what's going on. But as I started my research, as you guys know, sometimes I get too ahead of myself. I get too excited. I get too overwhelmed. This needs to be its own episode. And I had been talking a few weeks ago about Brooklyn's brother, who had posted about how Brooklyn blocked everybody. And that kind of brought up this drama in recent months. And then now, obviously, Brooklyn coming out swinging, saying all of this defamatory stuff about his parents and what they did in regards to his wedding. So that kind of sparked me a couple weeks ago thinking about needing to do a specific episode about the wedding. So now I feel like I just need to do a big proper episode where we talk about all the lawsuits from the wedding, all of the defamatory statements that Brooklyn is making about his parents. I do believe the kid. I don't think anybody would want to put their parents really on blast like this if it wasn't a little bit truthful. But of course, we will be getting there. So today will be all about Netflix and what I'm watching. It has been snowing in New Jersey. It has been incredibly cold in New Jersey. So I've been watching an aggressive amount of television. I made these homemade cookies last night that tore my belly up, unfortunately. And you guys, big news here, but I might be getting involved in a chili cook-off in Maplewood, New Jersey. So starting February 1st, as long as I get into the competition, which will be on February 22nd, if anybody wants to come and try my chili, I have to be making a million different types of chili until the competition. And then I think I have to make 12 quarts worth of chili. So I don't even know how I'm going to be doing this. So you guys, I'm incredibly busy watching TV, making cookies, and thinking about chili. So just bear with me as as I explore my other hobbies outside of podcasting as well. And you guys, I am reading again. I'm reading again, and I am currently reading Cue the Sun by Emily Nussbaum. She is a Pulitzer Prize winning author who is a television critic for The New Yorker, I believe, and a bunch of other websites and whatnot on a freelance basis. But this book is all about the invention of reality television. And 11 pages in, completely hooked. I'm learning about my favorite genre in the world, aka unscripted programming. So definitely check that out. You guys, I'm reading again. We're on the up and up. 2026, the year of guests and the year of reading. I was supposed to have a guest today, but the storm derailed a lot. You know what I mean? And also, there's obviously the elephant in the room as to what is going on social media lately, which is, the horrific ICE raids all throughout the country, mainly in Minneapolis right now. And I have to say, the government's gross abuse of power that they are, inflicting upon some innocent immigrants and some just everyday civilians is really disgusting. That's not what this here show is about. But I do want to acknowledge that I don't stand for that, and I think it's fucked up. And I have a voice, so I will speak with it to say I don't agree with certain things, but also, like, who am I? And I'm not the person any of you guys are going to for your, political news. So let's just pretend like nothing is going on, and the only thing in the world that matters is what is airing on Netflix currently, which Queer Eye Season 10 has come out. I mean, it seems like there's trouble in queer paradise. The Fab Five may have lost a member, as Karamo Brown has noticeably been absent from this new season's press tour. We might be calling them the Fab Four moving forward. But they have all been holding hands throughout all of their press interviews. looking like they are mourning the death of Karamo, not just the possible loss of him on the show, but they are all hand in hand, intertwined, talking about why Karamo is not here. Karamo is saying he was bullied, and that's why he doesn't want to go. He said he's protecting his peace. He said that is what he has always done as like the culture expert on the show. His spot on the show has always been a little bit questionable. He's like, let's strap on some fucking rollerblades to cure your childhood trauma. Have you ever been to a Renaissance fair? Because eating that turkey leg will help you rekindle your relationship with your father. Have you ever skinny dipped in the Atlantic Ocean? Because that will open your chakras like no other. Like his impact on the, poor innocent souls who go on this show is more of like a esoteric impact, where the others are like, do you like pineapple upside down cake? Let's make it. Do you need a full new wardrobe? So you go out with tan, or R.I.P. to Bobby. We lost Bobby a couple years ago for a new guy named Jeremiah, which that one was pretty obvious too. It's like, well, your house is a hoarder's den. Let's go to the Container Store and figure out some new systems that we could put in place. And then, of course, we have Glamazon JVN, who, gorgeous head of hair as always, who is like peace, love, acceptance, unity, diversity, inclusion, blah, 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 like, the king of like, love yourself, because then no one else will. And, they all have like their little niches, but Karamo's is always a little bit, a stretch sometimes. But it seems like they have kind of maybe been picking on him and make him feel like the odd man out. But Karamo has been denying doing any press. And of course, Gayle King coming in hot with the, hard-hitting questions at the beginning of the CBS interview. And she's basically like, all right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Where's Karamo? Whatever. And, they all are like, well, we respect his decision to not be here. And Anthony, oh God, the foodie, if we want to even call him that, he was saying, the Queer Eye family is like a family like you all have. Everybody has their drama and their issues. And, sometimes, there are fights amongst family. And I always just have found that when companies are calling themselves your family, it's never a good sign. None of us are family. You simply pay my bills. You keep my lights on. You are not my family. Because if you were, then my parents should just pay my bills. That would just be a lot easier than like going to work and like working hard and doing all those other things. But Antony is basically saying like, you know what? This too shall pass, we'll all be good. And then Jeremiah comes in, he's our newbie, who's basically saying, like, I'm getting really choked up, like, I don't want to cry, but like being in this group has like changed my life, and like these guys have changed my life, and like this whole process has changed my life, and my life has changed, and thank God for these things and opportunities, because my life has changed. And like Gail basically is like, yeah, no, I understand your experience, but your experience does not discount what Karamo is saying about what was his experience. So supposedly Karamo's mom heard them talking smack about Karamo, which obviously has, created this whole mess of issues. So we'll see where this takes us. I mean, again, we're at season 10. That's a wrap, as they say in showbiz. Sometimes a good thing must come to an end, and I feel like after 10 seasons, we can take a little breather, come back in 5 years with a new cast of guys. And this is similar to how I feel about Love is Blind. We've hit 10 seasons. Let's put baby to sleep for a little bit. Let's take a little break. We don't need to jump right into a season 11. It seems like we have some internal conflicts to deal with before we move forward. So we shall see where, this takes us. But I have to wonder, did the Fab Four use the same publicists as Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo? Because everybody is touching too much. And can we all just stop touching each other? You too, Drew Barrymore, but I'm, watching all these guys touch and hold on to each other in these professional interviews. Like, this is a professional interview. I'm sorry, but like, I've never really touched coworkers like that. But it does make me miss the days of social distancing. Like, please stay 6 feet away from me and do not hold my hand unless it is a consensual hand holding. I don't want anyone holding my hand. Even like, I don't know, even like if my parents try to like hold my hand, which like, they never would, it would be deeply uncomfortable.
even like when I would go to church, like as a teenager, and you'd have to like hold hands with the people next to you when you're praying or something, I'd be like, don't touch me, don't touch me. I mean, I have issues and we all know this, but like, I don't know, just stop touching each other. This is a work. This is a professional environment. We all don't need to be, clutching onto one another, hoping and praying that Karamo comes back. I will say Karamo is hosting these like meditations on his Instagram, and he's like, close your eyes, be kind to yourself. And I was like getting a little teary-eyed listening to one this morning. Again, I'm knee deep in self-preservation mode these days, so any type of like self-love mantra is unfortunately speaking to me. I don't know if you guys watched this weekend the live event that aired on Netflix with Alix Honnold, who is a free solo climber. So being a free solo climber basically means you climb mountains, and in this case a building, with no ropes, no safety gear, and evidently zero fear. Alix is known for climbing the 3,000-foot El Capitan mountain in Yosemite National Park back in 2017, but this is the first time he's ever climbed a building. So this guy has been climbing for over 30 years, and this was the first building he has ever climbed, mainly because, I mean, just climbing a building is kind of hard to get approval for. So without like the backing of Netflix and like the heaps of insurance policies they had to probably take out on this guy, he wasn't really able to just, climb buildings. But this past weekend, he climbed Taipei 101, which is one of the tallest buildings in the world. That was 1,667 feet. And he climbed it without any ropes or safety gear or even a safety net. And Homeboy climbed this building in 1 hour and 31 minutes. And I have to say, like, this episode took me like over 2 hours to prepare. And this man could have climbed a skyscraper twice in that amount of time. I really feel like I need to work on time management because things, when you look at it, like climbing a building and planning a 47-minute podcast episode, we are not the same. Alix Honnold and I are not on the same level. But this was the first time Netflix has ever done an event like this. Obviously, it's a huge liability taking on a project of this scale. But again, Alix has been doing this as a professional for over 30 years and has proven, again, in his documentary that came out a few years ago called Free Solo, that he was, obviously capable of doing something like this. And he had spent time particularly training for this climb over the last few months, where he would obviously like go and see how the building itself was constructed. There were like ridges around the windows, so he was really able to, climb it comfortably. Like it's not like a fully glass paned window, so there wasn't like areas where he couldn't grip onto something. But this man has these fucking big ass gorilla hands, massive hands, big muscles, just veins busting out. His upper body strength was like no other. Like it was like nothing I've ever seen before. And there was one moment where he was doing some tricks. He was scaring the audience, myself included, where he was just like hanging on to, this one ridge just by his legs. He was doing Look Mom No Hands, and it was giving me agita. Watching him was incredibly nerve-wracking and just like shocking to see like, a man who's like pretty easy breezy about the entire situation. I had watched an interview with him earlier in the week, and she was like, are you scared? And he's like, no, I'm not really scared, this is what I do professionally, so I've been prepping, by going to the various, rock climbing gyms that I go to, and prepping and understanding, the grip techniques that I'm gonna need. But yeah, I'm not nervous. And then he's like, what's the worst thing that could happen? I could die. And I'm like, that does seem like a pretty bad thing to happen, but I guess it's just like par for the course when you're a free solo climber. You're like, if I die, I die. I died doing what I love. But this event is live on Netflix, but of course you can watch it after the fact. I mean, it was pretty incredible. I mean, so many moments were like making my heart race, and I just I'm realizing like I can't even go on a ladder without like needing a spotter. Like I'm a baby. I'm just a girl. But he seemed so casual as he was talking about it in advance, as well as the aftermath. He gets to like the tippy top, and there's like this rounded little dome with a spire on top, and he's standing on top of it, casually taking selfies. Again, like no fear in the world, like not an ounce of fear was emanating off of this man. And then he goes back down and he's like talking to his wife, and he's like, "Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And the wife is like, "Can you please like give us a little something?" And then she's like, "Can you say hi to the kids?" And he goes, "Yeah, they're not watching." I don't know about you, but I feel like if my dad was climbing a 1,667-foot building, I feel like I would be watching. But then on the other token, like, God forbid this man actually like fell. Like, what are your kids are gonna just watch that in real time? Like that, I don't mean to be dark. I don't mean to be dark, but like, oh, can your kids see that? Like, I don't know. So he was like, yeah, they're not watching. Then they took some selfies, but he was so like cool, calm, and collected upon finishing. Again, like no hooting and hollering, like no being annoying. I mean, I don't know. It was incredibly impressive to watch. And he, as I mentioned, was also in a documentary years ago that won an Academy Award that's actually on Hulu right now called Free Solo. And that's all about his journey climbing El Capitan. And again, it's incredible. And you just see the pure strength that this man has. I mean, anything that takes real physical strength is just like simply not for me. But I mean, it was impressive. It was really cool. And it's, family content for everybody. And I will say he did talk about how he did some practice runs on the building with the camera team to prepare, for the cinematographer and the, camera operator to like know what certain shots that they're going to be getting throughout the live feed, because they can't just like go, in blind with like, oh, I hope this is a good shot. And there were people inside the building that he was climbing, like taking photos of him and taking videos of him, and it's all over YouTube. And even that is like really fascinating to see. But I also wonder, like, this poor guy, I guess it was only for an hour and a half, but like he completely raw dogged it. Like if it were me, I would like have one AirPod in, with like an old episode of, Watch What Crappens, my favorite podcast. Like I can't even wash the dishes without a podcast playing in the background, let alone like climb a building. But he might have needed to like be centered. But for me, like being centered is like listening to like old show tunes from Pippin the musical, or yeah, like Watch What Crappens or Jeff Lewis live. Definitely check that out. Okay, we also have to talk about Selena y Los Dinos, the documentary that came out in October of 2025 about Selena Quintanilla. This documentary is all about Selena Quintanilla and her family, who obviously, rose to fame in the 90s. She was, the face of Tejano music. And of course, like, I'm the biggest gringa you'll ever find. So, like, I'm sorry. Don't slander me for pronouncing things incorrectly. But I will say I tried pozole for the first time on Saturday, thanks to a fabulous friend of mine who is just exposing me to new cultures. And I have to say, absolutely love it. I had never had hominy before, and now I'm fully converted. I need pozole in my life a little bit more. But anyways, this is all about Selena and her family band. Her dad was basically the Mexican Joe Jackson, encouraging his kids to become these musicians, music producers, drummers, singers at a very young age. He himself was a musician, and he always wanted to kind of carry, that tradition on to his children. My brothers and dad would always say when I was a kid, if I, was a boy, they would have been the Jonas Brothers, because both of my brothers are very musically inclined. And so that's always stuck with me. So I could have, been a Jonas Brother had I had skills. But I always said I would have been more of like the Selena, like I would have been the breakout star of the group. And like that would have then killed my brothers, and our family would have been over, whatever. Enough about me. But the entire documentary that came out in October, which like I know feels like ages ago. Like this had always been on my list of docs to watch, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And then I feel like when you don't watch something like within the first week on Netflix, it's like never going to be on like your main homepage, and then you just forget about it. But I did not forget about you, Selena. I never would. But the story is all about really her and her family and their humble beginnings and the hard work that it took to get there, year after year after year of hustling and struggling to reach these goals, and pivoting their style and adjusting to what the masses are wanting. At the time of her death, she was, this beautiful, fresh-faced artist inspiring other, young girls and boys who, had Mexican culture, who, were kind of not embracing that because they were trying to embrace this American culture. Selena kind of gave them the confidence to, be an American, but also love and respect and value, your Mexican culture. And I mean, her rise was, pretty evident when you see like all of the videos of them performing and, how magnetic she was on stage. And I mean, there's so much about her story that is so unfortunately tragic. Her untimely death at the hands of that bitch, Yolanda Saldivar, who was the president of her fan club, who shot her in the middle of a hotel lobby over supposedly like a dispute over money. But I will say, what I really enjoyed about this documentary was that it did not focus on her death. It focused on her life, her upbringing, her family roots. It had, various people in her family, her father, all within the documentary talking about, who she was and the magnetic personality she had and this power that she had when she was singing and this power she was developing and having and creating in culture. I've always loved her. I mean, the song Dreaming of You is like so like near and dear to my heart. It'll randomly come on the radio when I'm driving, which I love listening to the radio, BTW, and it will just like make me like crumble kind of. It's like one of those songs where I'm like, I think I gotta pull over. Like I'm gonna get too many tears in my eyes and possibly get into a dangerous situation. But I also used to listen to that song when I was little, when I used to cry in my bed about my brother's friend who I had a crush on. I used to cut pictures of that kid out of his Christmas card that was like once hanging on my fridge. I would like hide the Christmas card in my room, cut his face out, and then sleep with it under my pillow. But I literally remember listening to Dreaming of You by Selena while crying about this boy who didn't like me. Um, so thanks, Selena, for that one. But I mean, it was a great documentary. I absolutely suggest you check that out if you're, interested in her or have loved her music because it really showed you, her slow success building into what could have been even more of a success than she already was. And I will say there was interviews with her ex-husband, Chris, the hottie with the ponytail, and even her sister had talked about like her relationship with Chris like really escalated very quickly and they like very quickly got married and her parents weren't involved and people in her life were upset with her. But, unfortunately, when she did die, at least she had experienced love. At least she was a wife. She had these big deals with Coca-Cola and had attended the Grammy Awards. Like she accomplished so much in her short lifespan that, it's better than, I guess, not. I don't know. It is so sad. Oh my God. And you see her dad in these video footage from, the time of her passing, and he's just like acknowledging the press saying, like, I can't believe she's dead. And like he's getting all choked up. It is so sad. It is so sad. But she's just like an icon. She forever will be. And live, laugh, love, Selena. Okay, quick turn. Whew. Elizabeth Smart. Kidnapped. Elizabeth Smart came out this week. Elizabeth was kidnapped in June of 2002. Everybody knows about the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. She was a cutie little classic Mormon girl from Salt Lake City, wealthy family, who was taken from her bedroom at 14 years old. She was a classic, cute girl from a Mormon family, 5 kids, very involved in their community, very involved in their church. She was an adorable little harpist. Her and her sister both played the harp, and it was so cute seeing such small girls next to such large instruments. But long story short, sweet little Elizabeth at 14 years old was kidnapped from her bedroom. Any type of kidnapping that happens in somebody's home is generally some kind of inside job and a targeted attack. And at this point, for months, her family, her community, her church are searching high and low to try and find Elizabeth and to figure out what the fuck happened. The house didn't show many signs of a break in. There was one sign of break in, but it looked a little bit shady. And this became, a massive nationwide story. I mean, hello, she's white and blonde. That's exactly what, the media eats up, But of course, there's just many, many kids who are not white who are snatched up every year that you don't hear about. Again, we're not getting into sad topics today. We are keeping it happy. I'm like, we're keeping it happy. So let me talk about this girl who was like devastated during her kidnapping. But long story short, I'm not going to give away too much. I mean, obviously, like this happened in 2002. And if you're like an American citizen, you've heard of Elizabeth Spart and probably know about the, story behind her kidnapping. But after 9 months, she was found. And she was found because of the bravery of her sister, who was only 9 years old at the time, who had witnessed the kidnapping and the man breaking into her room. As it was happening, the man was threatening both Elizabeth and her sister at the time, basically saying, like, if you leave your room to go tell your parents, I'll kill you too. Don't worry. Like, you're dead if you open that mouth of yours. So after months of the sister ruminating and trying to figure out where she had heard that voice, because from the jump she said, I recognize that voice, I just don't know who it was. This girl's 9 years old. Like, give her a fucking break. And you see like some of the interviews with some of the lead detectives who were on the case at the time, and they were like, I wasn't believing her, not convincing. She's 9 and her sister was snatched out of their bedroom. Give the girl a fucking break. And that tip ended up cracking the case, and after 9 months they were able to find Elizabeth, and she was, brought back to her family, and brought back into, this new world that she now needs to live in. And I mean, again, I'm not going to go too much into what happened during those 9 months, but it is so sick what humans have the capacity to do to others, especially children. The people who kidnapped her were absolutely disgusting people who should be rotting in fucking prison. The man is in prison for life, and that stupid bitch woman uh, is out of prison. She got out in 2018, and I hope she, rots in another way. But, what happened to this 14-year-old girl should, one, just never happen to anybody in general, but it did such a number on this sweet girl. Like, you really can't come back from that, And 14 is such a pivotal age for a young woman, and to be defiled, to be kidnapped, to be threatened, to be abused by these freaks, to be starved, to be forced to drink, to do all of these sick fucking things. Again, in the name of God, of course, because duh. But it is just so terrible. It is so terrible. And I know, like, these documentaries feel like they get like worse and worse year over year. Like, every documentary I watch is like more dark than the next. Elizabeth herself is in this documentary. She is so poised and so calm and so brave to speak so openly about her situation. She chose to open up and share the story publicly in such a large scale on a Netflix documentary to really help other people who have been in this type of situation to feel less alone, as well as just to help destigmatize talking about violence and sexual trauma. And, she is now a mother. She has, moved on with her life. Thank God. I mean, moved on as best as you fucking can. But, I can imagine when her children will start turning the age when she was taken at 14, I imagine that will be a very difficult time for Elizabeth and her family. It is just so sick to see what people have the capacity to do. And, thank God that sister was able to find that unlocked memory in her head to trace back to the person who ended up kidnapping her sister, who was a random person who her family had met only a handful of times. But I mean, her sister was in the documentary, her father were in there, and they both were talking about their experiences. Of course, her sister talked about, feeling so alone and feeling so scared during that time, and feeling like she knew something, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Like, she's a child. Like, that's the most incredibly traumatizing experience of being in that room with that person who's taking your sister out the fucking door with a knife held up to her neck. You're going to repress some of those memories. And she said she had just been reading like a book in her bed months after Elizabeth was taken, and she randomly had it come to her. And that was, so shocking. I mean, again, like, you hear about this kidnapping, you hear about these things, but like, you don't know the nitty gritty of a lot of this information. So it was just wild. It was wild. Definitely check that one out. But speaking of dark documentaries, there is nothing more classic Megan O'Donnell than being almost 9 years behind the curve when it comes to a very large documentary series that was absolutely riveting. You guys, I watched The Keepers on Netflix. So this is a documentary chronicling the death of Sister Mary Sesnick, who was a nun and teacher in Baltimore. She taught at an all-girls school, and she was mysteriously murdered. So her murder is actually still considered a cold case, but this documentary goes into basically the cover up of her death, as well as the cover up of decades of sexual abuse and misconduct from the priest at this all girls Catholic school where Sister Mary Sesnick was a teacher. So again, I'm like, spoiler alert, it came out 9 years ago. So this documentary really starts with trying to figure out who killed Sister Mary Sesnick. She was 25 years old. She was a very liberal and fun and easygoing nun. And all of the girls really loved her and really valued her and really used her as a resource when it came to, their problems and talking with her. They felt like she was a peer versus like an old mean nun who was going to like hit them with a ruler like my dad's Catholic school teachers. But long story short, and again, I'm not going to give spoilers, but some of the girls had been experiencing very, very aggressive sexual assault by the hands of the priest, who was the chaplain at the school. I don't remember exactly what he was, but basically, Sister Mary Sesnick started feeling something was off with this man, and that when the girls would exit his office, there was like a clear shift in energy with them. And she was talking to one of the girls, and she was kind of trying to get the girl to open up, and she was too scared to open up. Of course, the priest had been, threatening her, don't talk, whatever. I'll kill you if you bring this up to anybody. And Sister Mary basically kind of encouraged the girl to say, what happened. And she didn't even say what happened. Miss Mary Sesnick was like, is the priest, doing inappropriate things with you? Just nod if that is the case. And the girl nodded. And then Mary Sesnick was like, don't worry, I will protect you. We're going to figure something out. Fast forward, Mary Sesnick is found face down in the fucking woods, dead in a ditch. And that murder mystery really was never solved at that time. And unfortunately, because of the stigma and shame associated with sexual assault, so many of that priest's victims never came out with their stories or experiences until the 90s, 20 years later. One woman begins to speak up and sues him and sues the school, and then other people, of course, are coming forward. And then as this was happening, it started becoming more and more clear that the people who were assaulted had confided in Mary Sesnick. And after Mary Sesnick had this information about the kids being assaulted, she got moved to another school. So they got her the fuck out of there, and they were covering up for the creepy fucking priest. So the documentary then takes a full left turn. So it goes from talking about the death of Mary Sesnick to now the rampant sexual assault happening at this fucking all-girls school by all these fucking guys at the school, priests, fucking gynecologists. Like, the priest was going to the gynecologist with 14-year-old girls, and they were like raping them. It was fucked up. Oh my god. This is crazy. And abuse is one thing, but when you're abused at the hands of priests or higher up in your church or whatever religion you are, it makes it even more confusing and shameful for the person being assaulted, because their abusers are literally these moral authorities in their life. So it can really mess with you when you're supposed to trust this specific person above all else. And you're inherently supposed to respect their authority, to not question them, to be obedient. And in this case, the priests were saying, God told me to do this because you're a whore and God wants me to fuck it out of you. Literally, some of the shit that was being said in this documentary was above and beyond anything I've ever heard in any sort of documentary where people are discussing the heinous crimes and assaults that have happened to them. I mean, it is a doozy. It shook me to my core. I mean, again, it took me 9 years to watch this, but I definitely think it's worth the watch. Again, this Elizabeth Smart and the Keepers documentary are both like big sexual assault warnings. Like, if you are going through your own trauma, I would absolutely say, like, skip those. Like, watch Free Solo, watch Queer Eye. Those are a little bit more safe for anybody who's like in the throes of their own, shit right now because I've been thinking about some things after watching both of these poor girls, and if anything, it just makes me want to fight for women's rights even more. And again, people are disgusting, and so many people in positions of power can be so cruel. It doesn't matter what powerful position you're in. It can be the fucking manager at the factory that you're working. It doesn't have to be the president or the priest. It can be anybody. But power does such a number to people and allows people to take advantage of marginalized communities, young women, people of color, LGBTQ. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, anybody who they think is lesser than them. And these documentaries just like shine such a light on that, and I fucking hate it. You guys, I'm fucking serious, and I'm a serious fucking journalist. Don't you forget it. But okay, nothing like 15 minutes about like deep dark kidnapping and sexual assault and murder to pivot into Alix Earle's new reality show on Netflix. We don't know the name of it, but I'm guessing it's going to be called Earle's Girls because that is what Alix Earle and her sister and her stepmom are now tagging like all of their social media videos. But again, this is yet another example of white mediocrity landing themselves probably a seven-figure television deal. Must be nice. The unscripted series is going to be arriving sometime in 2026. Doesn't seem like they've started filming by any of the sources that I'm reading, but it's going to be focusing on her blended family, her friends, her sister, who's also a fellow content creator named Ashton. And of course, I'm going to give it a shot because I'm a masochist. I give everything a shot, other than Palm Beach. Yikes. Actually, no, I did give it a shot. Is 17 minutes of the first episode considering giving it a shot? I think so. I think that was enough for that show. But, I don't think we'll be able to get another family-based show that is as interesting or fun as Love Thy Nader. As we know, like, the Kardashian kind of framework that has been created already, and now people are trying to continuously duplicate. Like, I'm sorry, the Hogan family is never going to be interesting. Like, nobody cares about the Hogans. No one cares about Sylvester Stallone's kids. Like, just because you have a family full of hot people doesn't mean they're going to be fun or interesting on a television show. Alix herself is actually the executive producer on the show, which I also think is a real disservice to viewers because that actually means she's going to have the ability to review and sit in the editing bay with editors if she so pleases, which will actually take out some of the riveting and ugly and weird scenes that really make reality shows fun and interesting to watch. Unfortunately, seeing people have like a happy hunky-dory life like isn't really fun. Like, you need a little chaos, you need a little crazy. And I mean, Alix Earle, like I've said, she falls into the it girl category, like a Brooke Snyder, like a Kim Kardashian. So maybe everybody around her will also be, chaotic and fun and open, but we don't know. What do we know? I mean, she's so young. She's got 13 million followers on TikTok and Instagram combined. So she has a lot of eyes on her, and she's always been very open and honest about her life. Like, I was reading a Netflix thing, and it was like, Alix Earle, known for her candid get ready with me videos. Like, imagine the bare minimum making you interesting enough to now have a reality show on Netflix. At least Kim, was doing the dirty to get her way onto, her own show. And she was also working with Paris Hilton, and like her dad was involved in OJ's case. It's interesting to see, Alix Earle, getting this opportunity. Thomas Earle, her dad, will also be on the show with his ex-wife, Elisa. And Elisa and Thomas have Alex and Ashton. And Elisa, I believe, is actually recently diagnosed with cancer. So that's terrible. And, of course, I'm going to guess that's going to be on the show at some point. But, that's, again, personal. And, like, don't need to watch your journey. I am here for you. Thoughts and prayers. But, like, again, don't know if that's necessary to air out into the world. But Thomas is actually also now married. But Thomas and Elisa broke up. Thomas married a new lady, Ashley Dupree, if you guys remember that name. And they now share 3 children, Isabel, Penelope, and Thomas James Earle. These 3 kids, as well as Ashton, will also be on the show. And again, I don't know how I feel about like bringing these young children. Isabella, Penelope, and Thomas are all young, looking like they're in like elementary school, middle school, high school age, which I just feel like that's inappropriate. I mean, you don't really need to put your children out there into the world, especially like as a family-based show versus like a housewife show where the kids are kind of like the ancillary characters. Of course, Gia Giudice, like, in season 3, the poor girl's like in 7th grade and is basically like a full-time cast member. but I don't think that like did anything good for her, even though she's like very well adjusted and like a lovely young lady. But we, are going to be seeing her young siblings on the show. And I mentioned that Ashley Dupree, now Ashley Earle, may be a name that is ringing a bell to you. So Ashley Dupree, back when she was 22, was the former call girl that Eliot Spitzer, who was the former governor of New York, cheated on his wife with. So back in 2008, she was pretending to be a girl named Kristen, and she was Eliot Spitzer's prostitute. And I mean, everybody can change, and everybody has a past, and she was 22, so she's young, give the girl a break. But, like, having Ashley Dupree happen to be married to Alix Earle's father, and now they're all going to be on a reality show together. I mean, I'm gonna need a little bit from Dupree. I'm gonna need to know some tea about Eliot Spitzer. And I randomly hung out with Eliot Spitzer's daughter a lot when I was in high school through a friend who I knew who went to school with her. And at that time, it was probably like the peak of when all of this Eliot Spitzer prostitution scandal was happening. But I wasn't I wasn't involved in local politics at the time, so I didn't really care. And his daughter was always really sweet, so I felt bad for her because no one should have a father who's a disgraced politician who was, hanging out with hookers named Kristen. But I mean, that's just a little lore about the Earl family, and we'll add another little element of spice to this reality show. But of course, are we going to hear updates on Tom Brady? She also just got out of another relationship, so are we going to see aftermath? Are we going to see dating from Alex? What I really want from the new Alix Earle reality show is to understand what happened with her podcasting breakup with Alex Cooper. She has kind of teased that it was like too much to write about in a caption. I'm hoping the show gives us a little bit of insights into what happened there, because it was kind of like Alix Earle was being positioned to become the next Alex Cooper, hot blonde girl with an unfiltered personality. And, that really ended quickly. So I wonder what the piping hot tea is there. And it also could be very simple and innocent because, again, here I am podcasting just nonstop, bringing you so much goddamn content. But it actually is a lot of work to podcast, to put out shows, to be interesting, and to have a show where you're also by yourself is very difficult. I've been talking to myself for decades, unfortunately, at this point. So, it's easy. It's common for me to just sit and yap for 47 minutes by myself, but it's not easy for everybody. So I can imagine it was also probably hard for her. So she might not have just been like living up to what Alex was actually requiring of her, or there could be something juicy and fun. So I'm interested in either, whether it's a real professional beef or it's something more personal. I'm here for it. I'm sad for it, and I unfortunately will be watching this reality show, this godforsaken reality show. So that actually brings us to the end of today's episode. You guys, I have Bravo Happy Hour coming out on Wednesday. We are talking about the Grande Dame's return with her sit down with Andy. That is going to be out February 1st. We're talking Teresa Giudice's new restaurant, the drama that we've heard so far about the Ultimate Girls Trip, supposedly Portia unfollowed Vicky, which, like, what do those two have in common? Like, that we'll be talking about that and more on Wednesday. And then Friday will actually be my food news episode. I was supposed to come out with it this past week, but I was on set, so your girl's gotta work, and there's only so much time in the day. So thank you so much for tuning in to I Know You Didn't Ask. I hope you enjoyed today's show. It was a little bit more low-key, because it's Monday. It's snowing. I haven't been outside in days. I don't know. I'm just tired, so let me live. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Megan the Podcaster, and also subscribe to the show, do all the things. What else am I supposed to beg you to do? I think that's it. I think that's all the begging for today. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
New episodes of the I Know You Didn't Ask podcast are out every Monday and Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube.